Good afternoon to all. Today we are going to discuss on the subject MSc 303 Research Method for Business Decision, and we will be discussing about sampling, types of sampling, and how we are going to determine the sample size. Today we will discuss on sampling and what are the different types of sampling which is being covered in Unit 2. Like before talking about sampling, we should understand what we know by population and sample. And when we talk about population, it is a collection of the elements which has some or the other characteristics in common. And normally the number of elements in the population is being called as a size of the population. The sample is a subset of the population, and the process of selecting a sample is known as sampling. And number of elements in the sample is called as sample size. So today we'll discuss about what we understand by sampling and what are the different methods of sampling. When I talk about sampling is a process of selecting a subset of observation from the population by which we can make an inference about the population parameters such as mean, standard deviation, etc. Sampling is a method that allows us to get information about the population based on the statistics from a subset of the population without having to investigate every individual. And this is about the population, and we draw the sample from the population, which is called as sampling. Broadly, we have two types of sampling. The sampling methods are divided into two. One is probability and one is non-probability. And in probability sampling, every element of the population has an equal chance of being selected, whereas in non-probability, all the elements do not have an equal chance of being selected. And this is the sampling methods like non-probability, probability. In probability we have simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, and other different type of sampling techniques. And in non-probability we have convenience sampling, judgmental sampling, quota sampling, and snowball sampling. This is simple random sampling where every element has an equal chance of getting selected to be the part of the sample. Like if you can see from this green, yellow and red dots, okay, randomly we pick and we select the sample. Random sampling is usually carried out without replacement, that is an observation which is selected in the sample is removed from the population. And with replacement means an observation which is selected for inclusion in the sample can again be considered since it is replaced in the population for subsequent selection. And here we go for another type of sampling that is called systematic sampling. Here we select a particular individual and we use a particular procedure in selecting the other elements. So the first individual is selected randomly and others are selected using a fixed sampling interval. We have another one that is stratified sampling, and here the technique divides the elements of the population into different small subgroup, that is strata, based on the similarity in such a way that the elements within the group are homogeneous and heterogeneous among the other groups. And this is what the strata we have divided. Then from each of the strata we collect the elements. In this type we divide the population into subgroups, that is strata, based on different traits like gender, category, and then we select the sample from these subgroups. Cluster sampling, the entire population is divided into clusters or sections, then the clusters are randomly selected and the elements of the cluster are used for the sampling. It can be further subdivided like single stage cluster sampling, where the entire cluster is selected randomly for the sampling. And we have two-stage sampling. Here first we randomly select clusters, then from those selected clusters we randomly select elements for sampling. Systematic sampling, as we have discussed, the selection of elements is systematic and not random except the first element, and elements of a sample are chosen at a regular interval of population. We have another sampling, that is multi-stage sampling, which is a combination of one or more methods, as we have discussed earlier. Here the population is divided into multiple clusters, then clusters are further divided into strata based on similarity. Then one or more clusters can be randomly selected from each stratum, and this process continues until the cluster cannot be further subdivided. And this is an example of multi-stage sampling. Here we have a new process that is called bootstrap aggregating or bagging. It is a sampling with replacement used in normally machine learning algorithm, especially random forest algorithm. In bagging, several samples with replacement are generated from the population, and analytical models are developed using each sample. And the size of each sample and the number of samples are determined based on factors of population size, target accuracy of the model. This is a new sampling which is talking about bagging, which is sampling with replacement. Normally it is being used in case of machine learning algorithm. Bagging is used in ensemble methods in which several models are developed, and the final prediction is usually based on measured voting. And ensemble is a machine learning concept in which the idea is to train multiple models using the same learning algorithm. And now we'll discuss about the non-probability sampling techniques, under which we have one that is convenience sampling, and this is the most easiest method of the non-probability sampling. And the individuals are selected based on their availability and willingness to take part. Quota sampling, in this type of sampling, we choose items based on predetermined characteristics of the population. Consider that we have to select individuals having a number in multiples of 4 for our sample. So we take 4, then we take 8, then we take 12, 18, 20, all this. Judgmental sampling, it is also known as selective sampling. It depends on the judgment of the experts when choosing whom to ask to participate. Similarly, we have snowball sampling. Here existing people are asked to nominate further people known to them, so that the sample increases size like a rolling snowball. We have another one that is voluntary sampling. The data is collected from some people who volunteer for such as data collection, like customer feedback in Amazon, TripAdvisor, etc. This is an example of your snowball sampling, okay, and we have linear snowball sampling. And this is another example of exponential non-discriminatory snowball sampling. The subjects give multiple referrals, and each referral gives more until required sample size is reached. And these are the few examples of how convenience sampling, judgmental sampling, quota sampling, and snowball sampling is being carried out. So this is all about the sampling and the sampling methods, what we have discussed, like probability and non-probability. In probability we have discussed like simple random sampling, cluster sampling, and in case of non-probability we have discussed like convenience sampling, judgmental sampling, snowball sampling, etc. When we go for sampling, there are different steps, like first we identify and define the target population. Second, we go for selecting sample frame. Third, we go for choosing sample methods. Fourth, we have to determine the sample size. And fifth, how to collect the required data. This is the most example of sampling. It's a frequent example of sampling, where these results concluded by considering the views of all 900 million voters of the country, or a fraction of this voter. So let's see how it was done. First stage in the sampling process is to clearly define the target population. So in order to carry out opinion poll, polling agency consider only those people who are above 18 years of age and eligible to vote in the population. This is step 1 in the sampling process. Second is sampling frame. It is a list of items or people forming a population from which the sample is taken. So here the sampling frame would be the list of all those people whose names appear on the voter list of a constituency. Sampling frame defines a source used for identifying the elements of the target population. Example, to study attrition among IT professionals. Source are LinkedIn, Naukri, Monsters can be used. Step 3, probability sampling methods are used because every vote has equal value and any person can be included in the sample irrespective of his caste, community, religion. So different samples are taken from different religions all over the country. Step 4 is sample size. It is a number of individuals or items to be taken in the sample that would be enough to make inference about the population with a desired level of accuracy and precision. Larger the sample size, more accurate our inference about the population would be. So for the Folds agency, try to get as many people as possible of diverse background to be included in the sample, as it would help in predicting the number of seats a political party can win. So these are the different steps what we go for normally to go for a simple sampling process. And step 5, once the target population, sampling frame, sampling technique and sample size has been established, the next step is to collect the data from the sample. And in the opinion poll, agency generally put question to the people like which political party are they going to vote for, or has the previous party done any work. So based on this answer, agency try to interpret who the people of a constituency are going to vote for and approximately how many seats in a political party going to win. Overall, this is the things what we have discussed in the sampling process, what we understand by sampling, what are the different methods of sampling, and what are the different steps in the sampling process. Thank you. In the next video lecture, I will be discussing on how to determine the sample size or the sample size determination.